Picture this. You're 100,000 years in the past. You've just killed something large, something that took your entire group half a day to bring down, and now you're standing over a pile of raw meat with absolutely no pot, no pan, no oven, not even a bowl, just fire, rocks, dirt, and your own bare hands. And somehow, some way, you have to turn that raw carcass into dinner. No cast iron, no ceramic, no metal of any kind. So what do? Do you just eat it raw and hope for the best? Do you throw it directly into the flames and pray? This is the question that sits underneath one of the most underrated mysteries in human history. We talk endlessly about fire, about tools, about language, about art on cave walls, but almost nobody talks about the actual mechanics of cooking before pottery existed. Because here's the thing nobody tells you in school. Pottery is shockingly recent. Humans have been cooking food for at least 1 million years. Maybe longer, but ceramic pots have only existed for about 20,000 years, and in most parts of the world, far less than that, which means for the overwhelming majority of human history, for hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors were cooking full meals. Real meals, without a single container that could hold water over a flame. So how did they do it? The answer is stranger, cleverer, and more resourceful than almost anyone expects, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a campfire the same way again. Let's start at the very beginning, because the story of cooking without pots is really the story of humans figuring out that heat could be controlled, directed, and weaponized against food itself. The oldest solid evidence for controlled fire use comes from a cave in South Africa called Wonderwork Cave, where archaeologists found burned bone and ash dating back roughly 1 million years. That's Homo erectus, not Homo sapiens. A different species entirely, with a smaller brain and a heavier brow, sitting around fires that they built and maintained on purpose. Now here's what's fascinating. At that point in history, there is no evidence whatsoever of containers. No baskets, no gourds, no bark vessels that we know of. So what were they doing with that fire? The leading theory, and the one supported by burn patterns found on ancient animal bones, is that they were doing something almost embarrassingly simple. They were just throwing the meat straight into the coals. Direct exposure roasting. You dig a small trench, you build your fire down to hot embers, and you lay strips of meat right on top, sometimes propped on stones to keep them slightly elevated. It's crude, it's smoky, parts of it burn while other parts stay raw. But it works, and more importantly, it changes everything about digestion. Cooked meat, even badly cooked meat, is dramatically easier to chew and digest than raw meat. Your gut has to work less. Your body absorbs more calories. Some researchers, including the primatologist Richard Wrangham, have argued that this single shift, learning to expose food to fire, may be the reason human brains got as big as they did, because cooking freed up energy that would otherwise have been spent on digestion and rerouted it toward growing the most calorically expensive organ in the human body. So direct roasting was step one. But direct roasting has a huge problem, and if you've ever tried to cook a steak by just laying it in a campfire, you already know what it is. It's incredibly hard to control. Too close to the flame and the outside turns to charcoal while the inside stays cold and bloody. Too far and it barely cooks at all. Ancient humans needed something better, something more even, something that used heat without direct contact with open flame. And that's where one of the true unsung heroes of prehistoric technology enters the story, the earth oven. An earth oven sounds almost too simple to be real, but it is one of the most widespread cooking technologies ever developed by humans anywhere on the planet, independently invented over and over again by completely unconnected cultures. Here's how it works. You dig a pit in the ground. You fill that pit with stones, and you build a roaring fire directly on top of those stones for hours, sometimes most of a day, until the stones themselves are radiating heat like a furnace. Then you remove the ash and the embers, and you place your food, wrapped in wet leaves, grass, or bark, directly onto those superheated stones. Then you cover the whole thing with more leaves, more earth, sometimes animal hides, sealing in the heat, and you walk away. Hours later, sometimes an entire day later, you come back and unearth a meal that has been slow roasted, steamed, and smoked all at once, using nothing but rocks and dirt as your cooking vessel. This technique is so effective and so universal that variations of it exist across nearly every inhabited continent. In the Pacific, Polynesian cultures developed what's called the umu, or the hungi, an earth oven used for feasts that could cook whole pigs. In the American Southwest and in Mexico, indigenous peoples built similar pit ovens to slow roast agave hearts for days at a time, transforming a tough, bitter plant into something sweet enough to eat. In parts of Aboriginal Australia, similar earth ovens were used to cook everything from small game to native tubers. None of these cultures copied each other. They arrived at the exact same solution independently because it is, quite simply, one of the most obvious ways to cook a large amount of food thoroughly without a pot. And here's the detail that should stop you in your tracks. Archaeologists have found fire-cracked rocks, the telltale signature of this exact technique. Rocks that shatter from repeated intense heating and cooling at sites dating back tens of thousands of years, in some cases with clusters so massive that entire hillsides are covered in them. These are sometimes called burnt mounds, and they exist across Europe, the Americas, and Australia, silent monuments to a cooking method so effective it barely needed to change for tens of thousands of years. But earth ovens, as brilliant as they are, only solve part of the problem. What if you don't want to roast or steam your food? What if you want to boil it? Boiling is actually a massive nutritional upgrade over roasting because it allows you to extract nutrients from tough plants, soften bones enough to access marrow, and create broths and stews that are easier to digest and can feed more people from less food. But boiling requires something roasting doesn't. It requires a container that can hold liquid and survive direct heat. And if you don't have pottery, that seems like an impossible problem. Except our ancestors found a way to boil water without a single ceramic vessel in sight, and the method they used is honestly one of the cleverest pieces of prehistoric engineering you'll ever hear about. It's called stone boiling, and it works like this. You take a container, something that can hold water but absolutely cannot go over a direct flame. Things like a hollowed-out wooden trough, a tightly woven basket sealed with pitch or clay, a stretched animal hide, or even a section of animal stomach, and you fill it with water and whatever you're cooking. Then, separately, you heat stones in a fire until they are glowing hot. And using tongs made from split branches or simply very brave, very calloused hands, you drop those red-hot stones directly into the water. The water doesn't just warm up, it roars to a boil almost instantly. As the stones cool, you fish them out and replace them with fresh hot ones from the fire, cycling stone after stone through the water until your stew or your broth is fully cooked. It sounds almost too clever to be prehistoric, but the evidence for it is everywhere once you know what to look for. Archaeologists find massive deposits of fire-cracked rock near ancient hearths specifically because stones used for boiling don't survive the thermal shock forever. They crack, they shatter, and when they do, they get thrown aside and replaced, leaving behind piles that can number in the thousands at long-used campsites. Some of these boiling stone deposits have been found at sites associated with Ice Age hunter-gatherers in Europe, dating back over 20,000 years, long before anyone in that region had ever touched a piece of pottery. And this brings us to one of the wildest parts of this story, which is what our ancestors actually used as containers before clay pottery existed, because the ingenuity here is genuinely staggering. Animal skins, when properly prepared, can hold water and can even survive brief contact with fire around the edges without burning through, especially if kept wet on the outside. Entire animal stomachs, cleaned out and turned inside out, made for astonishingly effective natural pots, waterproof, flexible, and in plentiful supply anywhere hunting was happening. Birch bark, when folded and stitched at the seams with plant fiber or sinew, can be shaped into a watertight container strong enough to hold liquid for stone boiling. And remarkably, birch bark containers don't ignite easily as long as there's liquid inside absorbing the heat, which is why this technique survived among certain Arctic and subarctic peoples well into recent history. Long after pottery had become common elsewhere, woven baskets made tight enough and then sealed with natural resins, pine pitch, or clay slurry could hold water for hours. And in some regions, humans even used the ground itself as the pot, lining a pit with clay or hide to make it waterproof, then filling it with water and heating it with stones directly inside the earth. Think about the sheer resourcefulness required here. Every single one of these solutions demanded that someone notice a property of the natural world, that stomach lining doesn't dissolve in water, that birch bark resists fire longer than you'd expect, that a woven basket can be made watertight with the right coating, and then deliberately exploit that property to solve the exact same problem. Cooking without a pot doesn't mean cooking without technology. It means cooking with dozens of different, brilliant, ephemeral technologies that mostly didn't survive in the archaeological record because they were made of things that rot, burn, or decompose. And that's actually one of the biggest challenges historians and archaeologists face when trying to reconstruct this entire era of human cooking. Wood rots, hide decomposes, woven baskets fall apart within decades in most climates, stomach linings vanish almost immediately. The only reason we know about stone boiling at all is because of the rocks left behind. The fire cracked stones that are essentially indestructible compared to everything else used in the process. Which means for every cooking technique we've found evidence of, there were probably several more that left absolutely no trace whatsoever. The full picture of how ancient humans cooked before pottery is, in a very real sense, permanently incomplete, reconstructed from fragments. From fire-cracked rock, from burnt bone, from the rare, incredibly lucky discovery of preserved organic material in extremely dry caves or frozen tundra. Speaking of frozen tundra, let's talk about one of the coldest, harshest cooking environments humans ever adapted to, because it produces some of the most astonishing evidence for creative cooking without pots. In Ice Age Europe, during periods when massive ice sheets covered much of the continent, groups of humans known to archaeologists through the Gravettian culture built structures out of mammoth bones, entire dwellings framed with the skulls, tusks, and leg bones of woolly mammoths. And in some of these sites, dating back over 20,000 years, archaeologists have found deep hearths surrounded by burnt bone fragments and fire-cracked stones. Evidence of communal cooking on a massive scale in one of the most inhospitable climates humans have ever lived in. In an environment with almost no plant material to weave into baskets and where wood was often scarce, these Ice Age hunters likely relied even more heavily on stone boiling and direct roasting than groups living in warmer, resource-rich environments. Every technique had to be adapted to what was locally available, which is exactly why cooking without pots wasn't one universal method. It was a toolkit, a set of principles, applied differently depending on whether you were in a frozen steppe, a tropical rainforest, a coastal shoreline, or a desert. And speaking of coastlines, there's one more technique worth talking about because it's still recognizable today, and you've probably even eaten food cooked this exact way without realizing you were participating in a tradition tens of thousands of years old. It's the clam bake method, sometimes called pit steaming, and it's essentially a coastal variation on the earth oven. Dig a pit near the shore, line it with stones, build a fire on top until the stones are blazing hot, then clear away the coals and layer on seaweed, which is packed with moisture. Place shellfish, fish, or other food directly on top of the wet seaweed, cover with more seaweed and then sand or earth to trap the steam, and let the trapped heat and moisture cook everything slowly from within. This technique has been used by coastal peoples across the world for an extraordinarily long time, and remnants of ancient shell middens, giant mounds of discarded shells built up over generations near coastal cooking sites, have been found dating back tens of thousands of years in places like South Africa's coastline, evidence that our ancestors were exploiting exactly this kind of steam cooking, long before pottery ever entered the picture. Now here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. If humans had already figured out roasting, earth ovens, stone boiling, and steam pits, all without pottery, why did pottery even get invented at all? The answer says a lot about how human innovation actually works, which is rarely about filling a total void and almost always about improving on something that already sort of works. Pottery didn't invent cooking, it refined it. A ceramic pot holds heat more evenly than stone boiling. It doesn't require constant stone replacement. It can go directly over a flame without shattering the way most earlier containers would. It's reusable indefinitely instead of being consumed or worn out through use. And crucially, pottery allowed for a completely new category of cooking, slow simmering over direct heat for extended periods, which opened the door to fermented foods, complex stews, and eventually the kind of layered, long-cooked cuisine that defines so much of what we eat today. The earliest known pottery, found in China, dates back around 20,000 years. But it took thousands of years after that for pottery to spread and become common across most of the world, which means there were entire millennia where some human societies had pottery, and others, sometimes living not that far away, were still relying entirely on stone boiling, earth ovens, and direct roasting. Proof that even after a better solution existed, older methods stuck around simply because they worked well enough for the environment and the people using them. And honestly, some of these ancient techniques never actually disappeared at all. They just got rebranded. That earth oven your ancestors dug into the ground and covered with hot stones and leaves. That's essentially the direct ancestor of the modern barbecue pit and the underground roasting techniques still used today in luau's across the Pacific and barbacoa traditions across Latin America. Stone boiling's basic principle, using heated mass to transfer energy into liquid, is functionally identical to how a modern sous vide immersion circulator works, just with rocks instead of electricity. Steam pit cooking on the coast is essentially a clam bake, which people still throw on beaches for fun today, treating what was once a survival necessity as a summer celebration. The techniques never vanished. They evolved. They got optimized. They got wrapped in metal and electricity and modern branding. But the fundamental physics, using heat, stone, earth, and moisture to transform raw food into something digestible and delicious that hasn't changed in 100,000 years. So the next time you throw a steak on a grill, or wrap a potato in foil and bury it in coals at a campfire, or drop a hot stone into a pot of stew because you saw it in some rustic cooking video online, understand what you're actually doing. You're not doing something quaint or old-fashioned. You're recreating a solution that predates written language, predates agriculture, predates even our own species in some cases. A solution invented by people standing in the dark next to a fire, holding raw meat, and refusing to accept that eating it cold and bloody was their only option. They looked at rocks and saw potential furnaces. They looked at dirt and saw an oven. They looked at an animal's own stomach and saw a pot. And through nothing but trial, error, and an absurd amount of patience, they cooked meals so effective that their basic methods are still being used today, tens of thousands of years later, by people who have absolutely no idea they're carrying on one of the oldest unbroken traditions in human history. Cooking without pots wasn't a limitation. It was one of the first great feats of human engineering, and it's been hiding in plain sight this entire time, buried under nothing more than a pile of cracked, forgotten stones.